Whoa. What's up?
How's it going, fellas?
We're going good, man. Pete, Wes, thank you for having me on.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey, pleasure, man.
All right. Of course, everybody, welcome to our episode of Legends of the... Of course, I got Pete with me, and then all the way from Paris, we have Robby Deshaies, writer, model, all-around good-looking guy.
It's my part-time gig.
Best intro ever.
That Instagram of yours could be a whole other avenue.
Full-time.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Making us all look bad. I almost didn't want to do a video. I was like, damn, he's gonna make us look so bad. Just post an audio version.
That's you sell it. You got to sell your look, and you guys are both good-looking guys. So I'm glad we came on camera.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
I'm sure it doesn't hurt on the back of your books when people look and go, "Whoa, look at this guy! Look at this guy!"
Bro, I'm more than happy to put you. That quote really shook me to the core. Like, that quote really hits me in the heart, and I was honored to have been able to put that on the back of our first trade.
So excited. I had quotes put in like DC and Marvel, but it always comes up Comics the Gathering. So I go to the comic shop, I'm like, this is me, and they're like, no, it's not.
I love it. I love it. That's how I'm gonna feel when I see it on the shelf, and I like go into the shop, and I'm like, that's my book.
Let's move on.
All right.
That's got to be a really good feeling to like look on the walls and see your names on books. It
is, yeah. I've already been into a few bookshops that have had, either Blackjack 22 or an anthology or The Streets Are in Red. And that's super cool to see. But, the dream is to always see your comic book up on the shelf. And now that this actually exists, it's literally in print. And it's, you got this beautiful sidebar.
It's gorgeous.
You're just like, oh, God, I can't wait to see this.
Not for resale. Don't sell that.
Yeah, no, that's my proof.
Yeah,
copy.
the proof
Checks into things.
Right.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, Robby. So let's start with. Well, Adam and Attorney was your first comic you wrote, right?
Yes, sir.
But you're a man who's got a poetry book out. Your other books out. Let's start. Where'd this come from? Why do these books exist?
So honestly, it was like the summer of 2019. I had just gone back from Paris the first time, and it was in that teen life crisis, like that. I wasn't a teen. I was 21. So it was just like that early 20s crisis where like, what am I going to do with my life? And I had picked up writing while I was away, and it was just like short little poetry stabs or like, a little bit of freestyle prose here and there. And then I met some people, got to talking, and then I was encouraged by my family and friends because I started sharing some of my work to pursue writing because they think I had a voice. I said, okay, let's give this a try. And so I wrote 75 poems that ended up telling a story both forward and backwards, a story about me and who I am and how I came to be, basically, and who I want to be, most importantly. And that's what flourished into Blackjack. Blackjack already had like a good amount of success from people who first initially read it. That inspired me to write a horror book based on the truth. Basically, that's what anthology turned into. That's why the tagline is the truth may set you free. And then that unfolded into Adam and Eternity. And then right after Adam and Eternity, The Streets Are in Red. And now it's just a giant bowling ball rolling down a cliff, and that probably won't ever stop.
How'd you go from, let's say, you went from poetry right into comics? What was the shift there? Motivation?
Poetry is beautiful. And if you've checked out Blackjack, poetry can mean a lot of different things. Blackjack is primarily freestyle prose with definitely like poetic elements. That's the simplest way to put it. And I already knew I had a great free form from writing, short stories or characters in a really good way. So going from Blackjack, which is basically kind of like a play, It was like a poetic play, like my own little secret journal that I was able to explore like my desires, my fears, and like my hopes and dreams in like this very beautiful diction. And the diction was so visceral that I'm like, whoa, I could be really good at writing a comic script. And like I've been reading comics my whole life; they've been my love. So that beautiful, diction side of actually being able to describe a scene, being able to describe a room, being able to describe a person, and even conversationally, really struck me. And then I just began writing a comic script. My first comic script I actually ever wrote was this little project called Solus and Luna. And I had like a one-page like manga that I did with KJ over at Esoteric Arts. And then that's what really jumped me into Adam and Eternity. And the afterword of Adam and Eternity actually is the creation of that story. Like where I was that day, I came up with that idea and everything about it. Because I always like sharing that with people in my afterwards. Like, where was I that day when I was sipping that coffee and that idea came into my head?
Let's see. Pete's got some deep dives on Adam and Eternity. I'll let him take it over.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate. I know you're a big Neil Gaiman fan, and I really appreciate. You always see an artist, and you can be like, oh, that dude must have been a real big Alex Ross fan growing up, or that dude must have really loved Neil Adams growing up. I already knew you were a big Neil fan, but just reading Adam and Eternity and the lore that you set up and the different threads that you kind of dangle for use down the line, because Neil does a great job. He'll be 50 issues later. He'll reference some obscure panel from, issue 5. And I can already kind of see you going that direction, taking those cues and like using that as inspiration. Now, having said that, like, what are those threads that you'd like to use going forward? Like, do you see a bigger universe down the road? Is Adam going to pop up anywhere else? Are any of your other works, I know you have A Hell of Our Own. Can we see Ophelia pop up anywhere? What's the plans there?
Okay, so first off, it's all connected. Yes, I'm pulling that line from the Mr. Snyder's death metal. It's all connected, and it really is. And it was kind of always like unintentionally the plan from the start. Like Rogue Comics was the platform for me to, it's my giant generator. It's my Skybound. It was my like mission to be like, I want to create my own universe. I want to make my stamp. And Adam is the theoretical beginning and end of all the stories that I will ever write. And so the first part of the book, you say you dive into with nothing in it, and you're like, whoa, it's kind of like the end of the world, but like, how did the world end, right? And you don't get that answer till the final chapters of the book. But that's only the beginning, because now we have this whole new world. But is it the world that we lost that's the beginning of the universe, or is the world that is new that's the beginning of the universe? Only I know the answers to this right now, but I can tell you, A Hell of Our Own
that's a
will tie into Adam and Eternity.
It's a big gaming move. Only I know, but maybe you'll find out one day.
To see that.
So A Hell of Our Own actually will
that's very exciting. I think that's very cool.
It was so A Hell of Our Own will tangentially affect.
It gives you a lot of like freedom in your storytelling to visit all sorts of things, and just bounce ideas off of each other and grow your characters through maybe stories that don't even primarily concern them.
It's true. And, with A Hell of Our Own, for example, I always start off with my stories for a simple idea. So Adam was, who am I? It's a simple question of identity, figuring out who a character is and like, how can he become more than just that character? A Hell of Our Own, the main focus of that is the philosophy of how to redeem a damned man. And I touched on that in The Streets Are in Red, and I think I did a pretty good job of that. But A Hell of Our Own is diving in a little bit deeper. And that's going to basically tear a man apart from the inside and then rebuild him again. And that path is basically the structure of what my universe is going to become.
So, I was just going to say there seems to be that theme of tearing down and building again, or building up to be torn down to build again. Now, is that something that is reflective of something in your life? Is that something that you pull from real experiences for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some lows. You know, I think that's something with everybody. You know, you've been in those dark places, you've seen those dark times. You know, you kind of forget at points, like, were you even there in the first place? You know, with how low you got. But then you always climb back up. You know, you always took that extra step. You fought, you threw that last punch just to get back up that one more time. You know, it's like one of those things that, you know, always catches on to you. You know, one of those panels we always see in comics and you give to anybody, when Superman hugs that person trying to jump off the building, or when Batman saves that little kid and gives him a batarang. It's just those little moments too that, you know, you strive for. You know, it's a hug a dad gives a son. It's the kiss that a mom gives her like newborn baby. It's just those little things that, you know, you think about that keep you going. And those are little things that always affected me. It's, you know, this is my little love letter to the world saying, thank you for not having me do something else when I could have become this.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's you know, I think that's something that everyone, or at least a vast majority of people, can really, really relate to. I know personally myself, you know, I've had my struggles with mental health. I've had my struggles with, you know, just being low, whether it be
being you,
like, you know, for anything actually happening,
just
or
being
just my
you.
own mind sabotaging me, you know. It's, and you hit the nail on the head when you say, with the whole, was I ever built up in the first place, or have I always been destroyed? But I think
because you can get rid of yourself.
It's important that no matter how destroyed you could be, swimming in a black ocean of just nothingness, you can always rebuild. And I think that you're really touching on that mentality in your books. And so that's why, with me personally, you know, we're friends, but at the same time, your work really, really has resonated with me. I don't really annotate books often, but I will tell you, I don't have it within reach, but my copy of Anthology, you know, it has post-its everywhere where I've made notes, or I've, you know, I've flagged favorite poems of mine. So, you know, the way that you write really resonates with me, and it really, you know, I will read a poem, I'll be like, well, damn, like, I feel like Robby reached into my heart and pulled that story out of me.
It's right in there. Right, Temple to Doom you. Just Temple to Doom, dude.
Temple to, yes.
That can be your whole shtick, Robby. You know, I will reach into your heart and pull the story out of you. But really,
I love it.
That's how I really felt, though. That's how I really felt.
Yeah, but instead of using your inner, deeper secret to destroy you, he used it to build you back up.
Yeah, exactly.
I give you the golden heart. I take the gold out and I put the gold in.
There you go.
Touch on these almost, you know, sad or depressing subjects, but you're like, listen, like, you can turn this into this, you know, like, I'm gonna take that blackness out of you, and I'm gonna replace it with this golden shining listen, you know. It's just, and it's also a sense of like, I'm not alone, you know. It's like, oh man, this guy's writing about this, like, oh man, I'm not alone in having felt that way, or gone through that, or, you know, felt this low before. And I think for a lot of people, that sense of not being alone is very necessary. You know, that's something that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to realize, that they're not alone. So that's something for me that really, really resonated. You know, it's like, dang, like, has he been watching me and wrote this about me? You know, like, this is my experience. How did this happen? So I really thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I think the lesson that I really enjoyed coming out of Adam was, as a writer too, was when I was writing the final chapter. See, I always had the idea in my head was Adam was so stuck on thinking about who am I to become, that, you know, he was kind of blinded at points to seeing those others around him guiding him to where he's supposed to be. And that was the whole point of the story, about like how that young creation, you know, learns about life around him from the people around him rather than just the ideas. And it was just simple to make them ideas and just make them living personifications of ideas, or have gods or have devils and stuff come up like that to make it mythological. And then it was always Ophelia who was by his side that kept him grounded and like woke him up to saying, it's not always about finding yourself, it's about finding yourself in others. And I learned that, like, you know, fairly early on in my life, after really dark times. And that's what's like always stuck with me. It's like, you know, you have yourself, you will never be able to get rid of yourself, but you have to accept who you are. And you also have to find people who are accepting of who you are, because then you're able to become who you're meant to be.
Yeah, I always read Ophelia as the literary personification of that voice in your head. That no matter how much you may try to sabotage yourself, Ophelia is that voice in your head going like, no, don't close yourself off, open yourself up. Like, don't do what you think you should do. Do what you know you should do deep down. That's what Ophelia always was to me, like that voice of reason.
Took that out of my mouth.
And
See?
you know,
yes,
right? Yeah, she's
Did it.
Pinocchio's Jiminy
I
Cricket.
am on your wavelength with your writing. Literally,
Yeah,
like it's
I love
like
it, man.
you know, and you know and you mentioned mythological. What is when you read through mythology? What are gods and devils and demons? But you know, they're basically our emotions, our feelings given personification. So
Absolutely.
and I think that Adam and Eternity, like you already said, really covers that. It's like a battle of just like finding yourself, finding, the people that accept you and what you want to do with your life.
I remember because I pitched Adam too, which was fun. Actually, it was some of my first experiences with editors. But I remember getting back from one company, and they were like, the simple 3-line response was, "Your book is great. This actually is a really interesting story, but nobody buys philosophy." And I was like, and that last line is perfect. And I actually, what makes me was I was like, okay, in my head, in the most not disrespectful way, but in the respectful way, I'm like, I beg to differ, but I think it does. And seeing people react to Adam the way you and Wes have, thank you, like seeing people react the same and getting the story that I tried to put together and they're understanding it that way, that's super cool to hear. So I'm like, I didn't care if I got the 1,000 print run or the 2,000 print run if I went to a company. I'm actually just touching, a certain reader's life who took the chance on my work, and that's more important to me.
And you know what? Those individual connections can sometimes really pay off.
Everything pays off.
You never know. Like for example, I know when we were, when we first started talking, and you were first kickstarting the first issue of Adam and Eternity, and I bought a bunch of copies, brought them to my comic shop, and ended up selling 10 of the 15 copies I bought to regular patrons. And I know for a fact I have 3 full sets of it up there, at the shop right now, just waiting for someone to find it and love it, because I know a lot of people that do back issue diving, and you know what? They'll take a shot on a book. I've never heard of this. I'm going to give it a read. And
that's always super cool.
Exactly. And you never know whose live you're going to touch. Because like I said, these are very relatable themes that you hit on. Themes that most people have experienced either at a certain point in their life or experiencing right now.
Right.
I
think it's a good time right now, too, like people saying. Now we're so disconnected with everything, the pandemic going on, everything, that, for a while, we didn't even have new comics. So you go back to shops, people are back diving, looking around like, oh, this is catchy. Speaking of catchy, I want to go into, what's your artist name? I don't want to butcher it.
Dom Pinto for both the Hell of Our Own and Adam and Eternity.
So where do we find Dom at?
So Dom can be found only on Instagram at the moment. Yeah, he actually deleted his Twitter because during the whole let's say like the height of like the social tension in 2020, he just couldn't take it anymore. So he was just like, I'm off. But he can be found at Instagram at AC, like AC _AGATA_. And he actually has been dropping a bunch of Hello Our Own previews. So pretty much his little like panel work in progresses as he goes. We got some, I can tell you, after the PDF I sent you, the final 8 pages of chapter 1, that's when literal hell breaks loose.
So it's going to live up to its title, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no,
it's going to be a hellstorm.
It's really, chapter 1 is one of the best slow burns I think I've ever like orchestrated, because you're gonna see, like, you know how it builds up right at the end of that preview. I'll tell you, that second page is, it's kind of, that page right after is just absolutely crazy.
Very cool. Now we've talked a little bit about Animate Eternity, and that's more of like a beginning and end, a very wide scope story. Now it seems like A Hell of Its Own is going to focus in very much so. We're looking into a different time era, and what more can you say about that? What are some differences from Adam and Eternity to Hell of Our Own, and what are some similarities?
So some of the similarities is obviously, just figuring out the idea of the individual. Like, how is everyone different, and how does everyone have a say in determining where they can be and what path they can forge? So with A Hell of Our Own, I wanted to dive in, the idea of a soldier. But I have always respected the honor and the tradition of samurais. And that's, my dad grew up teaching me, I did martial arts, and then he's always been a big superhero and sci-fi fan. So it was always that, nobleman mentality. His favorite superhero is Superman for a reason, being that perfect model. And samurais ought to always strive to be the perfect model. So what I wanted to visit with A Hell of Our Own was, a man who had seemingly lived the perfect servitude life of a soldier, a man who did as he said under a shogun, who was spiritually blessed with fighting by gods, to be like the ultimate samurai. But then he betrays himself, and he loses his patrons, and he loses his family, and his daughter's taken from him. And so what must he do to make the steps to gain back who he was or become the better man? That's the point of A Hell of Our Own. And the title just says it in itself. It's definitely going to be, there's going to be personal demons and there's going to be actual demons. And that's the fun part of diving into the Japanese mythology, as well as the influence from the infamous epic poem Inferno by the poet Dante. And so I'm delving into the 9 circles of my own like composition of Japanese hell, in 9 levels, and the 9 levels of who a man is, versus the demons actually around him.
It's deep, man.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's like so different from what you did with Adam and Turn, but so much similar with the end and the beginning.
It almost seems like a continuation of that story in a way, in the sense that it's like, who am I? And then also, once you know who you are, don't take it for granted, because you can lose it. And then you have to fight to get it back. And, it's always easier to fall than it is to climb. So,
Absolutely.
You can fall with one mistake, you can lose everything. And then what do you have to do to get it back? And I like the point that you make of like getting back to the man he was, or getting back to be a better man. Maybe
that's the big
version
point
that you think is your best self isn't actually your best self. There's always things to work on, and I think that's going to be a fun theme that you're going to explore.
Yeah, I really do. I have all the faith in this project. And, when we set the goal, we knew what we were doing. Dom and I had chatted about it. We knew how Adam went, but we also knew on our little bit of cult success with Adam that we would have people that would support this book. And, I had, good friends around me who I've met in this community over this past year who have really helped the book, ignite and get the traction that's needed. And I can tell you, like, if this book gets funded, you won't want to put it off your shelf. Like, it really is one of those stories that, I've written the entire script and I've read it over multiple times and done the fine edits, but the overall story I think is just absolutely really, really good. And it's going to hit a lot of people too, because everybody loves action, but when you can blend action with that perfect amount of heart, that's just a winner.
Yep, absolutely. Throwing a little philosophy in there too.
Yeah, because that's my poetic soul, man. It's just, you gotta talk about it sometimes.
Hey, you know what? I'm with you. Sometimes I do want to read something that's just like fluff or like junk food. But the majority of my comic reading, I enjoy something that leaves me, satisfied afterwards. Something that'll stick with me. And like I was saying with Blackjack and Anthology and Adam, there's lessons to be held where it's just like, oh man, you know, like that's gonna stick with me. I'm gonna use that in my real life, and I think anytime you can do that as a creator, you've really struck on something that is special.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Because I think that's part of what you had the success with Adam and Eternity too. Because I know it trickled. I came across you from somebody else that shared something. I've looked into it. I was like, oh man, this is hits, and then we share it and it spreads. And I think it's that deep thing that everybody's feeling, especially like I said right now, everybody's kind of alone and we're so disconnected. Yeah. Adam and Eternity hits on all that, and now you're moving that forward into another story, which is why I think your Kickstarter took off like it did, and it's where it's at already right now.
It's kind of crazy. It was nuts, dude. That first day last week, like, it felt so good.
Good, man.
Sorry, 2 weeks ago. Like, but it felt so good because it was like, wow, like, you know, you seeing like your hard work pay off, as any creator does with just any work. So it's super cool. And what's still even cooler is, you know, there's still talk of Adam and Eternity. And people just talking like, oh, are we going to see something next? And, you know, I do have a volume 2 planned out, but, you know, Dom and I really have a couple more tales to tell before we get to that volume 2. Because, you know, like I said, we are building a universe, and every other project I'm working on is building a universe. So it's all coming together.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, man.
That's good stuff, man. Let's see. So what are you doing over there now? What's Robby up to?
So what I'm up to right now, personally, just traveling around Paris. Like, even though I lived here 2 years ago, I've actually seen a lot of parts of the city because we're kind of like on like a semi-lockdown. You know, we have to wear a mask outside as like with any place. And all the shopping is closed, and restaurants only do like to go. So pretty much we get like food at like a little bakery or a little restaurant, and we go eat places that I didn't get to visit. So I've seen a lot of parks that I didn't get to see, and the parks here are absolutely stunning. You can really spend like all day in them. Seen a lot of monuments and places that I got to miss. Unfortunately, the museums are closed, so we haven't been able to see as much, but I did get to see a lot last time. I met a girl, which you know how that goes. I'm writing, I'm reading.
That sounds like the beginning of your next project that you're working on.
Yeah, I met a girl in Paris.
Yeah,
the city of love.
I've been working on a long-term romance story, and it was honestly missing that person in my life to help finish that story.
Right.
And so and now I'm like, oh, shit does work out like this.
Funny, the world,
but you know, it's like you take the steps, you know, you happen to stumble upon those things in life that you weren't expecting, you hadn't planned for, and it just happens to work.
Typically, what I've found is that once you stop trying at something like that, it's when it kind of falls into your life.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like, for me, it wasn't until I was just like, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I don't even want to try dating anymore. And then, like, boom, Jill falls into my life, and now here we are years later.
That's exactly,
staring down a wedding in a couple months. So, you know, it's almost like the world laughs at you sometimes, and it's just like, listen, you can try and try and try all you want, but sometimes you have to just like stop and let things kind of happen, which is a very difficult thing to do as a person. It's not something that you're ever really taught. You're always taught, like, you know, like, if you want something, go get it. Sometimes, you know, like, good things come to those who like bust their ass and go do it. But I mean, sometimes good things do come.
See, that's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah, that's a t-shirt, man.
Exactly. That may have been a shirt that I actually saw today or something. Who knows? But
there we go. That's
the
awesome.
point remains, you know, I mean, sometimes you just have to stop and like kind of center yourself in the universe and kind of experience what's going on around you, and then good things happen. It's not to say good things don't happen when you work for them, but there's a healthy balance there of knowing. I mean, what's the old saying? You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away. I mean, it's true. It's true. It really is. So that's awesome, though, man. So now you got that final puzzle piece.
Yeah, I think it's working out pretty well.
Good, man.
And then, like in terms of the other stories, what's actually really lucky is I'm actually, one of my artists actually lives here. So we've actually been having weekly meetings working on it's a long form graphic novel. It's about 220 pages. Um, that we're going to be pitching to a few companies in a couple months. And that's the magic tale that I've always wanted to read. So if you're a fan of like JLD, Nottingham, stuff that's recently come out, anything to do with magic, this book is probably going to have the effect of a DOT.
So everybody watching this right now.
Yeah. Basically, just the simple premise of the DOT and the sheer scope and scale. The book that I'm working on is massive in terms of like Hickmanian scale. So like Hickman was a big influence on this book.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. I mean, it does seem that with Ram V doing his thing on like Swamp Thing and Justice League Dark, and
Oh,
Pete's gone. He died.
Oh no! This is
no.
why we're good. This is first episode. We can
that's
edit
why
it out.
Yeah, we'll just cut him out. Let's see if he comes back in. Let's see.
Okay. All right. So how you doing, Wes? How's your day going?
It's going, man. Just chilling. Let's see. Where'd you go, Peter?
Where are
First
you?
take. That's why we're recording.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
I think he's coming back in.
Good. All right.
I think he's back.
All right. I don't know what happened there. I just got disconnected.
There he is. You're good. That's why. That's why.
Of course, that wouldn't happen in the hour that we were talking behind the scenes.
Right.
It would have to happen while we're actually airing. So yeah.
You know what people are gonna want to know is what happened before the show. We'll call this this was the drinks at the bar was before the show, and now this is the professional stuff. So people have to guess what we talked about. They don't get to know. It's only between us. But
yeah,
it's top secret stuff. Sorry, you should have been around earlier.
Right.
Now, so you mentioned you got you got the graphic novel going. What else? What else is brewing around in that noggin of yours?
So actually, have another comic project too that's coming out. It's gonna be a 22-page one shot with a beautiful artist by the name of Vanessa Fontanati. And she basically did the short. So if you read Rogue Comics' first artist showcase, which is called Rogue Comics Presents 3 Shorts, which is available on Amazon, it's 3 short stories written by me, and I have showcased 3 different artists to see what talent was coming up. I reached out to 3 different artists. I'm like, hey, I got this 5-6 page short story. I'm starting a comic company. Would you like to work with me and give it a chance? Vanessa was one of those who responded, and she pumped out a really great story called Breathe With Me. Everybody really enjoyed that simple 5-page script. And I was like, hey, I got another story for you, a nonfiction story along those lines. And it's titled Siblings. And it's this 22-page one-shot. And it's my love letter to my brother and sister. It's the simple premise is, siblings grow up and then they grow apart because their lives take them places. And this is the times they've come back together. So it's 22 pages of 2 siblings throughout their life talking. And the script, when I finished writing it and when I handed it to Vanessa, I was in tears because of how good it was in terms of actual situational, me talking with my siblings onto the comic page. And now she's turning, I have the first 10 pages so far, and it's going to be really, really exciting. So that's going to be Rogue Comics Presents Siblings. That will come out probably by the end of May, based on Comixology's, you submit their manuscript, but then they have their own release date formula. So I actually don't get to know the release dates until a week beforehand.
Oh, so
that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. That's why I don't know when Adam, the graphic novel, it's available on Kindle, and I submitted to Comixology, but I actually don't get to know when it will be on Comixology until a week beforehand. That's kind of one of the really funky things. So I'm gonna shoot it for late May or early June for that Siblings one shot.
Yeah, and I mean, gosh, talk about relatability there. I mean, I know not everyone has a sibling, but if you do, I feel like that's going to be something you're going to want to pick up and give a read, because
and it's something that's fun.
Especially getting to like, my siblings, we're all in our 20s now. And I mean, I have 2 younger brothers who are twins, and they could even attest, they spent the first 20 years of their life, in the same room, essentially. They grew up in the same room. They had bunk beds, they went to college and they roomed together. And, now for the first time, one of them has gone off and bought a house. The other one's, in an apartment. They're living apart from each other for the first time in 20 years. So you're talking like, you're basically, with them especially, they're splitting from essentially one entity into forging their own paths now. And what does that look like? I know I've had some conversations with them, and like, I understand it from like a sibling aspect, but like, I can only imagine from their point of view, So that's definitely a really cool thing that you're going into there. I look forward to reading that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we can all tell our superhero stories all day, but comics are a medium that has infinite potential. I read a lot of like Fantagraphics and top shelf books, and those are sometimes literally just like a dramatic comedy or like a rom-com with just basic fiction, like non-fictional people. And that's what I really want to do with siblings. And, a 22-page one-shot would be perfectly engaging for a lot of people. Because, black and white comics, some people can't get past the black and white comics. I love black and white comics.
I love them too.
But this will just be like a 22-page black and white, very similar to like a Terry Moore kind of, Strangers in Paradise feel, just with siblings. And want to do something that's a bit different. I can, as a creator, I can go anywhere, and that's what I love. And I love creators who really don't have to stick to a certain medium. I want to write this story and write this story and this story, and I can do anything.
Right. And going back to the whole black and white thing, I mean, adult coloring books are a big hit right now, man. You always market it as that. You never know.
I have a Batman one, actually. So
I just got 2 Spawn ones on Amazon.
I've got a Flash one up there, so I'm speaking from experience.
There we
go. But also, all jokes aside, 22 pages, that is a perfectly consumable format. I feel like that is a perfect size that, maybe you're not super into black and whites, but I feel like you can get through 22 pages, especially if the story is endearing and as gripping as, your stories tend to be. So I think that's a really good idea to kind of cover all your bases, because you're right. Not everyone is a fan of the black and white, and I can respect that. But at the same time, 22 pages, that's a consumable form of media.
And when we always talk about physical and digital format, because we all, us 3 of us collect comics, we know exactly how it feels to hold a booklet in our hand. And what's really great is how we're seeing the digital platform used. I like to do that 99-cent $1.99. You're paying for a digital PDF. I'm not going to absolutely take away your money. I'm not like a soulless man, and that's
looking
what I do.
Looking at you, DC. Looking at you.
What really bums me out is, you're paying for this digital thing that you're not actually going to get a physical of. And I see a lot of, indie creators too, who sometimes have like, like a $5.99 or $6.99. And I want to support as many creators as I can, especially on Comixology, because that's a great platform for a lot of people to upload their stuff, like including me. I'm like, but if you do like that 99-cent $1.99, that gets a lot more people to engage in your books. And, you're selling so much, there's no printing costs, there's no setup. You download a file, and like that should be immediate. But if you like your work and you want to engage it on the physical side, you want to take a copy. Well, I like to have that too, so people can also jump into that for my work as well.
Well, I think that's very wise to not go one or the other, because there's a lot of purists who are like, I like the comic book in my hand, I like to hold it. And, you realize when you're holding a physical book, you're paying for the paper, the inks, the staples, the process of putting it out into the world. And, then, you got people who are like, hey, I like digital. I don't have any room in my house. I'm already using 2 of spare bedrooms for all my comics. Right. So, having a digital book and like, I like what you're saying, in my opinion, there should be a difference in price between a physical and the digital book. You're not paying for the paper, the inks, any of that. So there's not any of that overhead. But to go one route or the other as a creator seems like you're just cutting yourself off from a market. So I think to go both physical and digital is very smart.
the for like the Hell of Our Own campaign, I mean, the first tier is a $5 tier, and you get a thank you in the book. You're gonna get mailed a physical book plate, and then you get the entire 120 something page PDF. I'm not giving you just chapter 1. I'm giving you literally the entire book, because that's as much as like, you're backing this project. You're gonna get the whole book. Like, why would you not? And then if you want to step it up,
the project, you should get the project.
Yeah, you should get the entire project. That's what a Kickstarter is. And if you want to bump it up to the tier, which is going to be a beautiful 8x10 book, which is actually going to be a bit bigger than like the traditional like 6x9 by 9.87. So it'll be like a nice little it'll be a nice book that will be on the on your shelf. And plus, the cool thing about A Hell of Our Own too is it's going to be grayscale with red ink. So
okay, that's awesome.
So, I like that.
So I can already, it's already going to be a crazy cool book. Like it's
I know I backed the physical, so I'm excited now.
Okay, yeah, dude, it's gonna be 8x10 gray washed with awesome red, and then you haven't even seen the colored cover yet. Dom's actually coloring it right now, and this is going to be black and blood and white, and it's going to be so good.
Love it. I love it.
That's awesome. Trying to picture because I've seen the cover, the uncolored cover, so I'm trying to paint it myself. I bet it's gonna look so better than what I can even imagine.
And the chapter breaks too. I pulled a little because the Invincible show has been so good. That blood splatter.
Yeah.
The chapter breaks. Yeah, the blood chapter breaks were fun.
Nice.
Perfect.
Very cool.
Yeah, and in terms of like comic culture, it's been a lot of really good influence too. Talking with other writers and sharing their works. I've been getting early PDFs and stuff. I've been sending PDFs to other people, and just building the community is awesome. And I couldn't have done it without having you two in my life. So I also want to say thank you for that.
Well, hey man, it's been nothing but a pleasure, because I mean, I'm just happy to do it. And something that I've really learned about, like, the comic book community is it's not a bunch of people trying to step on each other to make their way up the ladder. It's a bunch of individuals helping everyone up the ladder. We're all climbing, we're all climbing the mountain together. And if we all make it, we're all happy. It's not like I have to make it to the top of the mountain and no one else can. There's room at the top of the mountain for everyone. So I really, really have grown to appreciate, even with like YouTube channels, you don't see everyone's YouTube channel supports all of there's no sense of competition. It's all a sense of community. And I've really, really enjoyed that about like comics, whether it be the creators or the fans or the YouTube shows or, the podcast, whatever it may be. There's a sense of like, hey, if you like what I'm doing, you should check out what this guy's doing because he's awesome. There's
especially the Zack Snyder fans,
So like, there's I've really grown to appreciate that about like the.
That's a crowd that I need. I need to restore the Snyderverse crowd. Those people have power, man. Those people have power.
They all have power, and then Warner Brothers fed it to them, and now they want more.
Yeah, you need a good hashtag. I think that's the lesson to be taken here. You need a good hashtag.
What's good is, the film was good. So we got the Justice League film we liked. Tell me you guys didn't nerd out. Like I was like it was the film we wanted, and then we like finally got it.
And let me just put it out there. Like I loved the movie. I would love to see a continuation of those ideas. But I'm not the type of person to march through the streets demanding it.
No.
If it comes out, I'll watch it.
Yeah, that was a bit insane. That was a bit insane.
If it comes out, I will watch it and I will love it. If it comes out,
it's like Mortal Kombat. I'm watching a Mortal Kombat film to see people beat the living shit out of each other and possibly see a fatality on the screen. I don't care about the story. I want to watch a fight.
I didn't watch Godzilla versus Kong to see like character development. I want to see a big gorilla fight.
I don't want to see Godzilla cry. I want to see King Kong punch him in the face.
Exactly. I'm not, there's some movies that, you go into and you're like, wow, like that's a thinker. That really changed my life. And then there's some movies that you just go into and you're just like, I want to watch these two beat the hell out of each other. And that's it. That's all. There doesn't need to be any like You know, it's kind of like that English teacher that's like, now why did Edgar Allan Poe use the color black so much? And it's like, well, I don't know, maybe he was depressed all the time. Or, you know, maybe he just really liked the color black. You know, that maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Sometimes there isn't a hidden layer, and sometimes I don't want there to be a hidden layer. Sometimes I just want surface level, super easy, big gorilla fight big monster. Heck yeah, let's do this.
Right.
You know, a good example of wearing too much black? Bruce, because he sits in his goddamn cave and doesn't see the sun.
Yep,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will say though, I think it was part of Batman Eternal. Wes, you'll probably be able to help me out. What part? You remember the Utopia Gotham where he's got like the all white bat suit and he's like, and it ends up being like a fever dream of Alfred.
The John Layman and Jason Fay book detective run from New 52. Exactly.
Was that what it was? Okay.
Yes.
I remember it being part of New 52. I couldn't remember if it was part of the Eternal storyline, but irregardless, it's like, you know, like sometimes the color is representative of something going on behind the scenes, but sometimes it's just, you know, like people looking into, okay, how about this? The Hulk used to be gray. Oh, well, I wonder if it was because he was like not as angry. Nope. At the time, it just cost more to print in the color.
Green ink was more expensive.
Green ink was more expensive. That's it.
Problem
you know,
solved.
maybe now they've changed that, but originally it was just because ink was expensive for the color green.
No, I mean it's the did you watch the I think it was on Disney Plus, the Marvel it was talking about like race and voices in the Marvel industry, especially in Marvel Comics.
Marvel 360
and they're talking
or
about
whatever
how,
it's called.
Yeah, I think that's the one. And it was talking about how black characters in the 50s and 60s in comic books, they actually didn't have the color brown to like print comics in. So they would always mix either black or like yellow together. And it always create like this really ugly, like not even close to brown color. So that's why like black characters in comics from the 50s and 60s never looked like black characters. They were like purple or like just one weird color. And, you know, that was like a really interesting thing to see because like look at the colors we have nowadays. I mean, like Adam, for example, is just a neon fantasy. Like that would be like really hard to do with like any simple color base back then. But now we get to have that full color scheme.
Right.
Well, it's like anytime that I see someone saying like, oh, you know, I can't really get into the art on older comics and stuff, I just feel like, you know, it's easy to dismiss that as just being like, oh, you know, whatever. But when you really think about it, you think about things like the paper quality has changed. The inks that are available to us have changed. So many different things have changed. And part of me would love to see like, you know, what would like a Brad Anderson, Gary Frank piece look like if they had been around in the 60s, in the 70s, you know, what would it look like in that era? I think about that a lot. Or like, you know, what would that Kirby piece look like if he did it today? Stuff like that kind of like is interesting to me. Well, I know the Kirby influence was strong with Adam in Eternity.
It really was. We wanted, I mean, I love this. This was a big page too for us because that's in the final chapter. But
that's why I used it as a background on our thing too. I love the swirl, the color. I was like, this is the one.
The what's cool was, you know, I launched that final issue, you know, when I wasn't even home. Lucky enough, I have assistants that helped me get the comics out and stuff. But I didn't actually get to see the final chapter in print till this proof. So when I saw this page, I flipped, man.
Yeah, that's
I was like to see.
That is a hell of a page.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed how we used the splashes in the final issue. That is the
type of piece that you see at a convention behind an artist that he's got like on display. You know what I mean? Like that is convention level splash page. That is really impressive work.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Dom killed it. I remember when I drew, I had a piece of paper and I drew those two circles and I like drew like really crappy, just super simple mannequin of Adam and Ophelia. Because I'm learning how to draw because I actually want to draw my own comic one day, just like a simple short comic. And that's why I just do simple sketches. But I sent that to him and I was like, dude, make this as black and white psychedelic as possible. I passed this to Jake when Dom was done. I said, Jake, pretend like you're on acid when you color this. And then he turned that into me. And I was like, you did it.
Nailed
That's
it.
awesome.
That's awesome.
I mean, to be honest, to hear the creative direction given and to see the end result, I think they nailed it.
Yeah, no, the
Oh,
team
yeah.
was, dude, the team was, it was literally all of us, it was our first comic project. We've literally been working on this for almost a year. It's been about a year now. And we were talking the other night, we're like, dude, it's finally here. Our trade paperback, you know, our highs and lows of the series, you know, like everything we did, like working together. Like these guys read my scripts and they picked it up instantly, from colors to tone to the pacing of the stories. I mean, you see it grow too. You see it go from a very central, like manga, 3 to 4 panels at the beginning, to Dom going full blown comic artist by the end. And that actually really was the intention with the story, is because we wanted to build, you know, this newly creation that
absolutely.
is simple.
I really was gonna say I didn't know if it was planned or just like an organic growth, but Dom's evolution just in the issues of Adam and Eternity is, I don't want to say abrupt, but very, like, it's just like a very sharp slope.
Yeah.
Like he just
Yeah,
jumps. It really takes off. And
Last night I reread 1 through
really
3,
cool
and I
to
noticed
see.
it too.
Yeah,
So
the
that
page of
again, I'm really excited to see you guys teaming up again for a Hell of Our Own, because I mean, if you guys left off up here, where are you going to go from there? Like, the sky's the limit, and you guys do, like you said, you work so well together. Like everything,
thanks, man. Yeah,
it's clicked. The writing, the art, the colors, they all work together. So I'm really excited to see what's in store.
The first 2 scripts for Adam were full defined, like fully written, you know, like 26-page Word documents, right? Like it was Alan Moore worthy. And then by issue 3, when we started to get the grips on, you know, each other, and like we each other's strengths and talents, we started doing the Marvel style, and then it just turned out perfectly. So I would write the dialogue, I'd write the basic setup for the pages, you know, what characters should look like, blah, blah, blah. And then Dom went at it, and the Marvel style just ended up working. Those first 7 pages on our Kickstarter page, those were all pretty much simple Marvel style, and they turned out some of the best pages he's pumped out. So it really is a relationship that has grown from the beginning, which I'm super proud of.
Now, how did you and Dom come together before Adam and Eternity? Was it, you know, just a community thing where you just stumbled upon each other, or, you know, was someone like, hey, Robby, you really got to check this guy out?
It was so do you know DeviantArt?
Yes. Oh, okay.
So it wasn't DeviantArt. But
do you know this? Because it was
close. It was Behance. So that's Adobe's basically DeviantArt platform for artists to put out, you know, ads or their work. And I was looking on their work for hire artists, and I stumbled upon no other than a portrait of death by Dom, and then a series of he did a 6-page horror one. Yeah, he did a silent 6-page horror one shot of a man getting possessed. And so then his simple storytelling was
right there.
It really was love at first sight. And I was on like the first scroll too. Like I like loaded Behance. I was like, holy shit. And then I like clicked on his profile, and he's like just starting. And he's like looking for a collab, and kind of I just reached out. I was like, hey man, I got the story idea. Do you want to check it out? See if you want to do it? And just kind of worked.
I mean, the fact alone that one of the first things you saw from him was a death piece, you know, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
What more do you need
at
that point?
Do I have? I think I can share.
I would actually love to see that piece that you first saw, and we're like, yeah, absolutely, I need to work with this guy.
Right.
Let me see if I have it. I believe I do.
If you ever come across it, you should post that on your Twitter.
I'm gonna definitely share it on my Twitter, because after this I will. Because I think you're the first guys I've actually told this to.
I didn't know that. Yeah. That's very cool.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So I saw.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
very nice.
Yeah, and it was just the eyes that got me. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but I'll post it on my Twitter later. But that was the photo that got me in, and I was like, he can draw Ophelia because I know what I wanted Ophelia to look like. I'm like, he can draw Ophelia.
So then, was Ophelia the first character you kind of had a physical vision for then?
I had both Adam and Ophelia, Prometheus and Dolos were all the first characters I had completely mapped out to be like look exactly how they look in the book.
Okay. Now, how much? Because I see Ophelia as, this book could easily be called Adam and Ophelia and Eternity.
Mm-hmm.
She is a very big part of this book.
She's there from the start.
We were talking before, and like I saw Ophelia as that voice in your head. That voice in their head that tries to guide you, but like sometimes your own whatever gets in the way. But Ophelia is the one in your head going like, "Don't give up, keep going." Like find your true purpose. So like, what made you write her as strongly as you did? Like what was the inspiration behind Ophelia's, intentions, how she was with Adam?
It was so I've had very beautiful, very strong women in my life. I have a very strong, intelligent mother and sister. And when I go into writing female characters, I go into that mindset of I need a woman who will set a man right. If he's wrong, she needs to tell him he's wrong. And if he's right, she has to back him on, things he said, just a simple relationship, like being a strong woman, being a strong man. And Ophelia was going to be the strong woman from the start. As you can tell from issue 2, there's a scene that goes back to a very famous scene in a certain book where the devil is talking, and you kind of get the sense that, well, is that somebody else, not Ophelia? And Ophelia's story actually will be unfolded in volume 2. Now that you say that,
oh boy! All right.
Oh yeah!
All right.
Once you see like the turn,
exclusive
of
breaking news
of like how Ophelia actually becomes Ophelia, like you guys are gonna be thrown because you're gonna be like, oh my god! Like
now,
chapter
when is volume
2
2 coming out again? Because now that
I know
I didn't know I needed it, but now I need
it. So it was always the point of she was going to be incredibly strong, and she's definitely going to play a massive role. But with the way the story playing out of the story of identity and who Adam is and who he's going to be, it was mostly that focus on him, and so that was definitely a delicate balance for me to not make this just Adam and Ophelia. It was a romance, yes, but it was also a journey to figure out who Adam was. And so that's where we really kind of had to draw the line for me. And I like to think I did really well with the balance, especially with the setup of like where they are at the end of the book for the beginning of volume 2.
Oh, absolutely. Because what you did is you told Adam's story. Ophelia was a part of his story, but it was an Adam-focused story. But it also leaves you wanting more of those characters like Ophelia. So I think you're right. You struck that balance of, telling the story you were telling while also garnering interest in future stories. It'd be easy for you to have, like overshadowed one story or the other, but you did exactly what would lead someone to want a volume 2. Like, hey, that was a really good complete story, but I want more. I want to know more about this. Like, that's what I mean about like the threads that you lay down. Like, I think that's
really why I ended with a question. And that's why in the first volume with a question, because that first question is a question that we ask ourselves when we're at that absolute low. It's like that. Where can we go from here? And that's all I wanted to do from the beginning was set up that perfect middle universe to jump off and use as a platform. That book was as much a like poetic catharsis of my soul as it was my introduction to the comic community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it shows. I really do.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's always good to hear that, when we intention as writers comes out and people like actually get it, it's super fun. Like that's like one of the best feelings in the world.
Well, right, because, it's one of those things where it can make as much sense as possible in your head. But like to hear someone else say, hey, yeah, that made sense in my head too. It's kind of like, oh, good. Like, good. I'm not completely crazy.
Right.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man. So in terms of the A Hell of Our Own, the same visual process is, Dominator going about it the Marvel way. The entire script is written, the stories are mapped out, and all that's left is for it to come to life. And I already know you guys saw it, and I can already say, but I'm super excited to finally be able to start building the universe that I've always wanted to build since I was a little kid. Because who knows, Adam in Eternity could be really big, or Hell of Our Own could be really big. And I'm not gonna sell my soul right away, but maybe down the line, there will be a whole new universe of characters where I'll be able to start bringing other writers and other creators in to write.
Right.
Because like I said, my prose work does even tie into my comic work. And A Hell of Our Own is that first interlocking piece to tie my prose work to Adam.
Interesting. Okay.
Deep.
Yeah,
So
that's very exciting.
So A Hell of Our Own Kickstarter ends. Let's say you get funded, because I think you will. Where does that story go after Kickstarter?
We're definitely going to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I don't see it not.
After the Kickstarter, we're planning the entire Dom and I already mapped out all his work days, so it should be done in August. So that's when we'll send out the copies no later than late August. Everybody get their physical trades, and then right after that is when I'm planning to announce that book, the magic book I was talking about with JJ, because that's when we should have heard back from pretty much everybody who we sent it to, and probably got a really good reply about, is what I'm thinking. And then I'm going to be doing a few more shorts with a few younger artists to get their voice out in the world as too. Because I don't mind just writing a 6-7 page comic script and sending them to a friend. I'm like, hey, do you want to do this for fun? Right. I got a new digital exclusive series for Rogue coming out called Tales of Your Destruction, with Jeff Hutchison. And that it's in the Comixology submit already. I'm just waiting for the date when they're going to release it. But that's a 20-page end of the world story. And the point of the series is, how end of the world, some people get really intense in their storytelling. This was my opposite. I wanted to tell the most sarcastic, just the most tropey, just awful end of the world scenarios with just funny writing. So the first one is a breakup during a cyborg and alien invasion. The second one is a punk metal dude who's resurrected during the zombie apocalypse and literally rocks away gods. So, it's these little things that, I just don't care. Or I just want to just write because it's a fun idea. So we're doing that.
I mean, absolutely. And plus, sometimes the genre could use a good shakeup. I mean, there's a lot of really serious, like you said, there's a lot of serious, woe is me. But I think that some funny stories would be a nice breath of fresh air in that realm of storytelling, so that's really exciting. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, so I got a few things coming up, and that's just I'm working on my fourth novel, and my fourth novel is actually going to be pretty long, so it's definitely chipping away at that, but the inspiration's not stopping. But those are pretty much the big projects I've got coming up.
Very cool, man. Always busy. And I mean, you're doing all that while you're doing your studies and you're in Paris. So, I mean, my goodness, how many plates can you balance at once?
Right.
I'm a speedaholic. I like
probably for the best Paris that's still in lockdown for you, so you can kind of get stuff going.
Actually, it's kind of, I agree, because I'm not out clubbing and I'm not out partying like I was last time. So that is nice. Yeah. No, but it's great, man. I wouldn't have chosen another profession to figure out who I was.
Good, man. That's great. I mean, no matter what's really important is that you're doing what makes you happy. And I think it's pretty evident that you are.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And, like I said, just building our little community here has been absolutely great. Talking with everybody, getting to know everybody.
Couldn't agree
all
more,
of us
man.
just sharing the same interest. Just shooting the shiv on comics and, having our opinions, and I'm loving it. It's great. Because I think we all pretty much agree on a lot of the same things too. We all appreciate a good story. We all appreciate a good film. We just appreciate good art, and we appreciate each other most of all, which is the best thing.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can definitely count. I'll be tuning into Legends of the Dork Knight quite often. As soon as an episode's out, I'll
Again, I
jump
really
in.
love that name, man. I love the Dork
Oh, yeah.
It
Knight.
is.
I think
It's
that's
perfect. As
fantastic.
soon as you announced it, I'm like, this is. I like that. This is fits the theme. It fits the motto.
I mean,
it's perfect.
I can just hear Mark Hamill calling him the Dork Knight. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
lighten up, you Dork Knight. It
That's
just
where
really works. It really
That's where I
works.
stole it from. Was an episode of Batman the Animated. I think Joker's talking to Harley, and he calls him the Dork Knight, and that's just always resonated with me. And I was like, oh my god,
That's
this is
There
awesome.
we
I
perfect.
go.
love it.
This is
I
There we
love
perfect.
it.
go. There we go. There we go. I love it. I
Yeah.
love to hear it.
So,
All right. So, gentlemen, since I share an apartment with my siblings, I unfortunately might have to sign off because I have an apartment share. So I can't obviously take up the whole room as I do with myself because I do
no,
present.
that's absolutely fine.
Hey, no worries, man. I'm really glad we could
Mhm.
get together and chat like
Got it,
this.
man.
This has
Yeah,
been
I'm
really
super
fun.
stoked. Yeah, thank you for
Me
having
too.
me
You're
on.
welcome.
Is there anything else that we wanted to get from me, drill in
I mean-
before you lose me to the screen?
I think we covered everything pretty good. We covered,
Yeah, man.
what you have worked on, what you're working on, and what you plan on working on. So
Yeah,
the
thank you.
future looks bright, my friend. Really excited to see what you got going on, and I'm really
I
happy
appreciate
that I have been here to be a part of it. It's really been a pleasure getting to know both of you guys over the last year plus now. But really, just one day when I can say I've got a signed and remarked copy of Adam in Eternity #1 and the store exclusive copy that you sent me. I'm gonna be at your table one day, being
Right,
like,
yep, I got 'em
Rob,
too.
you remember me,
Yeah.
man? Like, look
Hell
at
yeah,
the comic you
hell
sent me for
yeah.
my birthday. You
I mean,
remember that?
Right.
you gotta love it
So-
because like that first issue was a Miracle Man homage. That first issue was an Alan Moore Miracle Man homage, especially the guy walking through flame.
Yep.
And then the
Right.
second issue was a Devil's Advocate with the Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino film. That was the second issue. The third one
course.
was a Gaiman reference of the Endless, and then the fourth one was just our Equinox idea. So it's always all the covers were just absolutely stunning for the series. I really enjoyed all of them.
Fantastic, man.
All
Fantastic.
right. I've got your Twitter
Oh.
rolling about the bottom, but where can everybody else find everything you're doing?
It's actually the same handle across all my platforms. So you can find me at Robby_Deshaies on my Instagram and my Twitter. It's Robert Deshaies II on my Facebook, which is also linked to my Instagram, so you can go through there. I have a link tree on all my profiles. I have all my links, including all my book links, my website, which is rjdeshaieswriting.com. You can find pretty much every link on that website that will go to everything, and that's right. It's the first button on my link tree. Go back or Kickstarter, Hell of Our Own. Got that on my first pinned tweet and in the first pinned tweet on my Twitter and in my link tree. So everything is right there. Go ahead and look at it. Go back the project. Let's see some demons and swords come to life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, man. A whole bunch of fun. Well, appreciate you coming by. I'm glad we got you on the first episode to kick this off.
Thank you for having me on the
I'm
first
surprised we got through it
It's
like
an
we did.
honor.
Only one. I know. I've been promising you forever, so I'm glad we could finally get this in motion.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Picked up, man.
Yeah, we only had one mishap too.
All right,
which was,
I'll drop
not
all
even
links
a
and
mishap.
yeah, one. I know. It was just Pete.
And of
disappeared
course,
for a little bit, but
it wasn't before we started actually filming too. I just can't get over that fact. We can talk for an hour beforehand, no problems. But can't make it. It wouldn't be
Yeah,
a
of
first
course.
episode with at
It's all
least
good.
one mishap. Well, you just gotta expect it.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I know.
All right, gentlemen.
Well,
thank you.
I'll see everybody later. Thanks everybody for coming by.
Hey, it was my
Bid you
pleasure.
adieu.
Let's do it again soon. Robbie, you take care of yourself over there, man.
Thank you.